The first points race was almost 8 months ago. 23-year-olds have earned their way in. Post positions are up next. Live from the Aristides Lounge, it's time for the Derby Post Position Draw Show, presented by Ram Trucks. The 145th running of the Kentucky Derby will be drawn today. Joe Christopek alongside Brandon Staubel. And Brandon, yesterday we sat in these chairs and we were pretty convinced who the morning line favorite and probable post-time favorite was going to be in Bellafina. The Kentucky Derby, a little bit different than the Oaks in that it's wide open.
Yeah, a lot can depend on the draw in here. We think Omaha Beach will get the morning line favoritism. Had to work over the track. He's been here for a little bit, but Justify showed last year you don't have to be here to win it.
And speaking of Justify, it kind of all sort of starts with Bob Baffert. He's won 5 Kentucky Derbies. He's won 2 Triple Crowns in the last 4 years. He's got game winner, 2-year-old champ, winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and 2 others.
Improbable with that big white face. Also a huge stride, Joe, down the lane, and he's looking to give Bob Baffert another winner. Roadster on the screen here, the big gray. He galloped well today. We'll see what he can do coming up after the post position draw.
3 different horses for Baffert, 3 different kinds of horses. A game winner is the seasoned veteran. He's never finished worse than second in 6 career starts. Then you've got a horse like Improbable, still trying to figure him out a little bit. Tried Blinkers last time. That didn't necessarily work so well. Blinkers off for the Derby. And then you've also got Roadster, as you mentioned, who was the horse that Baffert thought was his best prospect as a 2-year-old. As we take a look at the top contenders based on points, Tacitus, the points leader, based on victories in the Tampa Bay Derby and also the Wood Memorial. Omaha Beach second, 137.5. He has owned Oaklawn Park in his last 2 starts.
Yeah, and a couple of horses I'm interested in for long shot purposes. Long Range Toddy, who trained well the other day. Tax, showing tactical speed coming out of the Wood Memorial. And then Master Fencer, who we got to see for the first time today.
A lot of decisions have to be made in this Kentucky Derby process when it comes to how you train, who you ride, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one man that had to make a decision, and an important one, is standing by with Ed DeRosa, the 3rd member of our team. Ed?
Thanks, Joe. That's right. I'm alongside Racing Hall of Fame jockey Mike Smith, who has Omaha Beach. Mike, you've won the Derby from off the pace with Giacomo, closer to it with Justify. Where are you hoping Omaha Beach is into that first turn?
Well, normally he's very forward. He's a very quick horse leaving the gate. He's got a very high cruising speed, so I've done a pretty good job of staying out of his way so far, so I'm going to try and do that again, and he'll be forward.
What number are you hoping gets drawn for him here in the post?
You know, that just depends. Depends where everyone else is drawing. You know, once it gets, you get to see where the other speed is, the other horses, and then you can kind of figure all that part out. But we're just blessed to be here, so as long as we get a spot to run.
Joe mentioned the decision you had to make. At this point, do you feel that's behind you and it's all focused on May 4th?
Without a doubt, no. It's time to get ready, especially once the draw gets over with.
Had a lot of experience in the Derby. The one hole is the post talked most about. Do you feel like that's the one people want least, and rightfully so, or would you be fine with it?
You know, I mean, I'd rather not be there, but I've been there and it's worked out pretty good for me. So, you know, sometimes a bad post can turn into a real good one.
When will you talk to Richard Mandela about strategy? Is that right after the draw? Is it a continuous process? Is it the morning of the race?
Well, I know him well enough by now, so it just depends where everyone draws, and we'll figure it out after that.
All right, very good. All right, Mike, and you've had a good sense of this field. You've ridden a few of them. Any specific dangers to point out, the horse you're most worried about?
All of them in there. I have a lot of respect for all of them. As you well know, a horse could jump up. They're all there, especially now, they're all in there for good reasons, because they have a whole lot of talent, and I take no one lightly.
Very good. All right, Mike. Well, it's a competitive group. Thank you for your time. Wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Joe.
All right, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Mike. And the decision he had to make, Brandon, was that he was aboard Roadster. He was aboard Omaha Beach. They both won their last preps. Mike won a Triple Crown last year for Bob Baffert aboard Justify, but Omaha Beach has been so impressive for another Hall of Fame trainer in Dick Mandela. Tough call, but one Mike had to make, and he chose Omaha Beach.
Yeah, it just showed a great mind in the Arkansas Derby, and you can see here on the screen, Joe, Omaha Beach in the red cap, Improbable on the outside of him. Now, earlier in this race, Mike made a move on Omaha Beach to kind of go ahead and take control here. Omaha Beach has the mind to be able to come back to Mike Smith, and then he's able to also finish down the lane. That was super impressive. You can see Improbable here with the blinkers on, and then you're going to see Country House in third here get on a late piece. But Omaha Beach was never going to get caught here, Joe.
Couple things about this race. Omaha Beach loves an off track, and probably was a mess in the starting gate with the blinkers on. He was on the bad part of the racetrack early, got outside late, ran a big race to be second. When it looked like he might have to be scratched with that mess in the starting gate, he was very fractious. Country House just rallying belatedly for third. But Omaha Beach was never letting Improbable get by.
Yeah, even on the gallop out, he had the ears up. He was ready to go again if they needed to.
All right, let's take a look at the next prep race on our schedule. That's going to be the Santa Anita Derby, a pair of Bob Baffert horses running 1-2. Game Winner was wide throughout. You see him here on the turn for home. Brandon, Roadster just sitting chilly at the back.
Yeah, Mike Smith was on Roadster here, kind of took him to the back. It was a little crowded up front, didn't want to be too wide. Now Game Winner ends up taking control here. You can see Game Winner in the pink silks, Roadster the gray on the outside and the red cap. Possible Game Winner didn't see Roadster coming, but you do have to give credit to Roadster here. He did run down Game Winner, but Game Winner never quit, fought all the way to the wire.
A deeper, heavier Santa Anita surface at this point of the year. Roadster rallying from off the pace under that hand ride. Game Winner running his typical game race to be second. Roadster's the horse that maybe has a higher ceiling. Game Winner, we know what he can do, but Game Winner's the seasoned veteran. That counts for a lot in a race like the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and we've seen horses do very well, Joe. Third start off of the layoff in the Kentucky Derby.
All right, let's take a look next at the Florida Derby in a race where you're either on one side of the fence or the other. Maximum Security on the lead, setting a very slow pace. Code of Honor further back off that pace is going to rally belatedly for third. Bodie Express, who's on the also eligible list for the Derby, chasing in second. He's still a maiden.
Yeah, and I like what you said there. You're either on one side or the other. For me, the pace was super slow. He was supposed to finish up the way he did, so I'm going to hold that against him. Code of Honor trying to close into a slow pace, finished up okay to the wire.
Well, here's the thing about Maximum Security. He debuted for a $16,000 maiden claiming tag. He's by New Year's Day, okay? He had a slow pace in the Florida Derby, and he went wire to wire. A lot of people see those strikes against him. That's probably why I'm going to get 12-1 on Derby Day instead of 6.
That's true, and you're going to get a price on Code of Honor as well if you like him.
The Code of Honor for Hall of Famer Shug McGahee, winning this race in 2013 with Orb. Okay, the Wood Memorial is up next, and Tacitus coming off the victory in the Tampa Bay Derby. And Brandon, there was a really quick pace up front. A couple of horses dueling for the lead set the table for Tacitus and Tax, but Tacitus did have trouble into the first turn.
He did. There was a lot of bumping going on. Tax ends up taking control. He took off the pace a little bit. You can see Tacitus, the big gray on the outside. Tax fighting this one all the way to the wire. You're also going to see coming to your picture, number 4 in the blue silks there, High Call, splitting horses late. A move that you really need to see in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it was a fast pace up front, so High Call should have closed, and he did. What I take from this race, Brandon, is Tacitus came up to Tax and looked like he was going to blow right by him. Tax kind of dug in a little bit, but Tacitus did not power on by. He did just enough to win. Tacitus is a horse that has been training sensationally well here at Churchill Downs in recent days. He kind of just floats over the track.
Yeah, I made a comment in the mornings during the morning work show that he's very big but very light on his feet.
We talked about Maximum Security being a horse who debuted for a maiden claiming tag. Tax ran twice for a maiden claiming tag, was claimed out of his second start for $50,000. Just goes to show you that a Kentucky Derby horse can come from anywhere.
Yeah, and this horse has tactical speed too, which will be key in the Kentucky Derby. If you need to start and stop a little bit, it feels like Tax can do that.
One of the talking points for people in this year's Kentucky Derby is the awkward stride of bluegrass winner Vacoma. We're going to take a look at him right here, Brandon. Got a perfect pressing trip. Signal Man is in the thick of the battle on the turn for home, and Win had some traffic trouble. He's going to rally stoutly to get up in the final stride for second.
Yeah, perfect trip for Vacoma in here. You couldn't draw it up any better. At the beginning of the video, you see Win and also check a little bit right before the quarter pole. You're going to see Vacoma kind of lugging out just a tad down the lane. He does have that kind of funky stride up front, but he powers out well behind. You're also going to see Signal Man make a nice rally on the inside, but Win with the trouble, closing on the outside. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, Signal Man gets nailed right there and cost them a spot in the Derby. Win getting up in that final jump to cost Signal Man the placing at enough points to get into the Derby. Again, this year, 40 points to get into the Derby, the most ever during the points era. What do you take from the Bluegrass, Brandon? Obviously that day, for those who don't know, obvious to us watching the card that afternoon, very speed biased racetrack. Vekoma was on the lead off the turn for home, perfect pressing trip. I thought win with that late closing relentless move may have been the most impressive horse coming out of this race.
Yeah, definitely, Joe. We talked about the trouble at the quarter pole. I have to factor that into play. I also have to factor in, too, that Vekoma got the perfect trip, took over turning for home, but also seemed to get just a tad tired late in there, so got to go an extra eighth of a mile in the Derby. I'm going to use that in consideration as well.
Louisville native George Weaver. The Kentucky Derby means a lot to every trainer that's ever trained a horse, but George Weaver maybe a little bit extra special being right here from Louisville. Louisiana Derby is up next. We're going to take a look first, Brandon, at the gate break here. War of Will, the winner of the LeCompte and the Risen Star, was the odds-on favorite here, but a little trouble coming out of the gate.
Yeah, very important here. You can see just right there, the hind end kind of slips out. May have thrown him off his game a little bit. He dropped back further. He's usually, Joe, a horse that likes to be up on the pace.
It took, by my standards, a few races to break his maiden, but this was his coming out party. You see him here on the inside, spin-off chasing on the outside, and War of Will in traffic. But again, War of Will a major excuse after the gate break. What do you see here in the final furlongs?
Yeah, I thought Spinoff ran a great race in here, but I love to see lightly raced horses, especially when they step up from maiden special weight company, handle these graded stakes. Grade 1 Louisiana Derby, sat behind horses, took dirt, and then you can see Gabe, all he's doing is flagging the stick late there, and this horse is extending the lead.
And he has trained phenomenally well since he's been here for several weeks by my standards. Going back to War of Will, I spent the entire winter in Louisiana at the fairgrounds. War of Will won the LeCompte. He won the Risen Star. He looked like he would be able to handle 1.25 miles. He's got good natural speed. Slight injury coming out of the Louisiana Derby. Brandon pulled a muscle in his hind end. They've been playing catch up a little bit. What have you seen in his recent training? Because I think it's looked pretty good.
He's looked good. I think it's all about intent. Now, the Cassie team took him to the gate at Keeneland, and then you saw the other day he was pretty headstrong. I mean, he worked well, but he was definitely into the bit. I expect War of Will to be forwardly placed in here, if not one of the top 3 of the pace.
Yeah, most definitely. War of Will has impressed me, and he's been tugging a little bit in the morning, so maybe a pace factor, like Brandon mentioned, depending on the post position. One guy who's got 3 post positions to draw, and he knows a thing or two about the process here, is 5-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer Bob Baffert, who happens to be standing by with Ed DeRosa. Ed?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, alongside Bob Baffert, won the race last year, looking for win number 6 here. Bob, you've had good posts. We know you've had bad with looking at Lucky. Where do you want these horses to draw?
You know what? I never really think about it. I believe in fate. So whatever, I have no control of that. So I'll just sit back here, and if you see me grab my stomach, that means I didn't like the post.
Any of the 3 you prefer outside the other 2, or anything along those lines?
I ain't saying.
So you have the 3 in here. As a trainer, when discussing strategy with your jockeys, is it more important the number they have or the horses around them?
I think what's more important is that they have the horse under them that's going to show up, because without that, it doesn't matter what post they're in, and they have to break well. That's the key thing about this whole race with so many horses, and so that's why the Derby's so difficult, because when you have 20 horses, that first couple hundred yards is like the start of the Indy 500. There's a lot of moving parts there, so you just want to come out of it and get around the first turn without having to be checked or bumped around. If you can do that, and in the backside, they just sort themselves out, but that first turn is so important.
If Roadster wins the Derby, TMZ might be in the winner's circle asking you for next year's winner. You've been confident in this horse for a long time.
Well, he's a horse that, from day one, a lot of the good horses, they'll, when you start breezing them, they'll tip themselves off pretty well, just like any great athlete. And then Game Winner, he tipped himself off, before he ran, and so then here comes Improbable. He was like, from the day one before we even ran him, we knew they were really special.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Bob. Best of luck in a few minutes, and best of luck in 4 days.
Thank you.
Back to you, Joe.
Well, this is old hat for Bob Baffert, but I'm sure he still gets butterflies in his stomach before the draw. The days leading up to the race, final preparations are almost complete. but it's a situation where he has seen everything. He's had every post imaginable, he's had every result imaginable, and obviously he's been in the winner's circle 5 times.
Yeah, 3 different sets of owners to worry about as well. I mean, they all want to draw well, even though they're all 3 his horses. That's a different factor he has to take into play too.
One more prep race to take a look at from overseas, the UAE Derby, and an unconventional route for Pluquet Parfait. And Brandon, he looks a little bit buried here on the inside, a clean trip on the outside, rallying from off the pace for Gray Magician.
Yeah, ran well here at 2 over the track, and they put the blinkers on in this race. Joe, you like to see that this horse can move in between horses. One hole closes, another one might open, similar to the Derby. And here you can see the red cap on the inside with those black blinkers. Cuts it out to the wire. Gray Magician under a push late. He'll get second.
Pluquet Parfait with a game victory here, putting blinkers on. A Gray Magician on the outside, finishing up for second in the UAE Derby, which has not been a very productive prep. Leading into the run for the Roses, Brandon, unconventional route for Pluquet Parfait, was not one of the major players on the Louisiana road to the Kentucky Derby. Went all the way to Dubai, put the blinkers on. All of a sudden, he seems like a new horse.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, coming back from Dubai, his energy level's really good. He's carrying good flesh, and like what I've seen from him in the mornings.
The draw is getting closer and closer and closer. You can feel the anticipation building here in the Aristides Lounge at Churchill Downs. For an explanation of how the draw is going to work, let's send it back to Ed.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, the greatest 2 minutes in sports means the most watched pill pool in horse racing, and that's about to unfold before us. We have a full gate, 20 horses. We're going to draw 10, and then the next 10 to fill those 20. We do have some also eligibles as well, I believe. They are not included in the pill pool, so we just have the 20 in the main body. Then we'll come back for the morning line from Mike Battaglia, and as you guys noted at the top of the show, very competitive group, very eager to see where he puts Omaha Beach, or probably around 9-2 or 5-1, but excellent betting race for those inclined to do that, and the post positions are the final piece of the puzzle.
Well, thanks, Ed. I don't know about you, Brandon, but I've had people asking me for weeks, who do you like in the Derby? Who do you like in the Derby? And you formulate opinions based on what you've seen in the preps, and then you see these horses train. But until I see the post positions and I'm able to visualize the race, and I'm going to have to make a pick later today, but I haven't made a top pick yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of reserving that for the draw, like you said. I'm a big guy that likes to look at the pace of the race, and it's hard to tell the pace of the race until you actually draw the post positions. We know who we think's going to be where, but until you actually see it in the post position draw, it's hard to really say.
So Maximum Security, War of Will, Improbable, Omaha Beach. Who else do you think? Vacoma. Yeah. Those are going to be the pace factors, but none of these horses needs the lead.
Yeah, they don't, Joe. And like you said, Vacoma, a horse maybe that perfect pressing pace last time, but if he draws the inside, he's going to have to use that speed early.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a situation where we know what horses have speed, but as Bob Baffert mentioned, Mike Smith mentioned, post positions mean a lot, but once that gate opens, anything can happen out of the gate. You see horses get sandwiched, you get horses that are roughed up, you get horses that get hung wide into the first turn. It's not until the backstretch when horses sort themselves out that you kind of have a feeling for who might run well.
Yeah, and that's why we've seen really since the change of the point system that horses with tactical speed do really, really well. They also win the Derby a lot of the time.
Yeah, no doubt we're getting closer and closer and closer to the Kentucky Derby post position draw presented by Ram Trucks, and we're going to have that just momentarily here. We're going to send it over to Steve Buttleman for the introductions and get this party started.
Steve Buttleman, his 24th year as bugler at Churchill Downs. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the post draw for the 145th Kentucky Derby. Travis Stone for Churchill Downs here this morning as we get set to draw the most historic, exciting, and thrilling horse race in the world here today at Churchill Downs. But before we begin, John Asher is not here this year, and there never was and never will be someone who knew and cared as much about the Kentucky Derby and Churchill Downs as John did. His enthusiasm for horse racing, Churchill Downs, and the Derby was infectious. You could be deep in the weeds on Derby week, and a quick conversation with him would pull you out. So it's a tremendous honor for me personally to be able to follow in his footsteps and host this draw today. And so in preparation to host the draw, I went back and I watched last year's replay and saw John go through the process. And at the very end of the presentation, he had a sort of throwaway line. It was not about himself because it never was about himself. But John goes at the end of the presentation last year, he said, if Churchill Downs ever had a third spire, and I thought that was really appropriate. If Churchill Downs did ever have a third spire, it would be John. We miss him every day. We think of him all week long. And so now the business at hand, drawing the post positions for the 145th Kentucky Derby. $3 million on the line on Saturday, mile and a quarter for 3-year-olds. It is, of course, a grade 1. 20 horses entered this morning, plus one also eligible. The also eligible is Bodie Express with jockey Nick Juarez. Scratch time is Friday at 9 a.m. That's when we'll find out whether or not Bodie Express draws into the race. So once again, 9 a.m. on Friday is scratch time. We will draw 20 post positions here this morning. First off, some introductions. Right to my left is Kevin Flannery, president of Churchill Downs Racetrack. Next to him is Barb Borden, chief steward of the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. And next to Barb is Justin Paul, Vice President and Associate General Counsel for Churchill Downs and Churchill Downs Incorporated. And one more little note about John Asher. He loved to tell the new old joke that Justin is here today should any litigation break out during the post-draw here this morning. Seated at the table in front of them is Ben Huffman, Vice President of Racing and Racing Secretary for Churchill Downs, and Dan Bork, Assistant Racing Secretary for Churchill Downs. Hanging the silks this morning will be Miss Kentucky, Katie Bouchard, and a little bit later on we'll hear from Mike Battaglia with the twinspires.com morning line odds. So the way this works this morning is Ben Huffman, the Racing Secretary at Churchill, has a pile of entry sheets that represent the 20 horses for the Kentucky Derby. We're going to draw the first 10, take a little bit of a break, and draw the second 10 after that. He will pull out one entry sheet, and then Dan will pull out a pill, and that'll correspond to the post position. Go ahead and shuffle those papers. We'll get ready to get going for a pretty anxiety-filled 20 minutes if you have a horse in the Derby. Probably a little bit more scary than the 2 minutes on Saturday. Gentlemen?
Put in 20. Here we go.
Number 11.
11, high call, Rajiv Mirage.
Number 11 is High Call, winner of the Gotham at Aqueduct earlier this year, was on the board in the Wood Memorial last time out. Rajiv Mirage has the mount. High Call is going to be coming from far, far off the pace on Saturday.
Number 2.
Number 2, Tax, Junior Alvarado.
Number 2 is Tax, finished ahead of High Call in the Wood Memorial last time out. Made the first move into what looked to be a pretty quick pace on paper. That's number 2, Tax with Junior Alvarado.
14.
14, Win, 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 Julian Pimentel.
Number 14 is Win, 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 breaking from post 14. Win, Win, Win likes to come from off the pace. He finished a hard closing second in the Bluegrass last time out. Michael Trombetta, the trainer, he actually started the favorite in the Kentucky Derby with Sweet Northern Saint back in 2006. That's number 14, Win, Win, Win.
Number 10.
10, Cutting Humor, Corey Lannery.
Number 10 is Cutting Humor with jockey Corey Lannery. Of course, nobody knows Churchill Downs better than Corey Lannery. He's won a lot of races here over the years, and of course, trained by two-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer Todd Pledger.
Number 13.
13, Code of Honor, John Velasquez.
Number 13 is Code of Honor for Shug McGahee, who of course won the Kentucky Derby with Orb in 2013. Code of Honor won the Fountain of Youth in March, was on the board in the Florida Derby last time out, a little bit pace compromised in there. Was hoping for a little bit of faster pace on Saturday. That's Code of Honor, number 13.
Number 1.
1, War of Will, Tyler Gaffleone.
Number 1 is War of Will, Breaking from post number 1 with Tyler Gaffalion, trained by Mark Cassey. A little bit of an unorthodox trip in the Louisiana Derby. Had some trouble in there, but all systems seem pointing to go for War of Will to rebound in the Kentucky Derby from the 1 post.
Number 15.
15, Master Fencer, Julian Leperoux.
Number 15, Master Fencer Julien Leperoux, of course, coming from Japan by way of the Japan Road to the Kentucky Derby Series. That's number 15, Master Fencer with Julien Leperoux.
Number 20.
20, Country House, Flavian Pratt.
Number 20 is Country House. Country House, like I called earlier, is probably going to be coming from far off the pace. Post position probably not as important for a horse like that. Trained, of course, by Bill Mott, who's no stranger to big race victories. That's number 20, Country House.
19.
19, Spinoff, Manny Franco.
Number 19 will be Spinoff, breaking next to post 20, which of course is Country House. Spinoff is trained by Todd Pletcher, was second in the Louisiana Derby to By My Standards, who also entered the Kentucky Derby this year. Manny Franco is going to ship in from New York to ride Spinoff, number 19 in this year's Kentucky Derby.
Number 8.
8, Tacitus, Jose Ortiz.
Number 8 is Tacitus for trainer Bill Mott. To say that Tacitus had an eventful trip in the Wood Memorial would be an understatement. A lot went on into that first turn. He was able to overcome it, though, for his second consecutive victory in graded stakes. Jose Ortiz with the mount. Bill Mott, the trainer of Tacitus, number 8. And that is the first 10 for Saturday's Kentucky Derby. We'll take a brief break and come back with the second 10 in just a moment.
First 10 post positions have been drawn, and Brandon War of Will. Not only is he a horse that has natural speed from the gate, buried down on the rail, but he's a big, long striding horse who kind of needs to be on the outside to put his best foot forward. Not a good post position for anybody, but War of Will especially.
Yeah, it has to be the talk of the room right now. That was the 1 post that they probably didn't want to. But to be honest, Joe, this horse has been showing a lot of speed in the mornings. They've worked him out of the gate. He's ready to run. From the 1 hole, I don't think it's as bad as maybe what it's going to look like
There's
originally.
the gap there. I mean, that's the question. If he can break alertly and show that speed and get into the race and make it into the first turn, that's always the question. That gap there makes it a little bit troublesome. Tax from post position number 2, not a great post for him either. Spin off from post position number 19, natural speed. It's going to be tough for him to avoid being hung wide into that first turn.
Yeah, actually, I don't mind the post for Tax. He's got tactical speed, but he can sit right off. And if War of Will, in my opinion, they're going to have to go, he can sit right behind War of Will. I mean, Tax should get a great trip in there saving ground, and just needs to find the trip late.
And Travis Stone mentioned Country House, probably not compromised by post position number 20. I mean, he's just going to take back and try to pass as many tired horses as he can.
Yeah, the tough thing about that is they're going to have to take back and then get over. Long run in the first turn, that quarter-mile run into the first turn, but at the same time, it's a lot of work to do. Spin off, you talked about. Win-win-win, I think that's a fine post for him. Same thing with Code of Honor and High Call.
Yeah, and Tacitus too. I mean, post position number 8. Anything can happen when they break from the starting gate. Horses breaking sideways, sandwiched, bumped around, bounced around, checked, steadied. Luck plays a big part in the entire process. First 10 are drawn, and right now, like we mentioned, War of Will, that's the tricky one for me.
Yeah, very tricky in there. We still have all 3 Baffords. We have Omaha Beach still to come, so this is about to get really interesting in here. You start to see the pace set up in your head a little bit, but there are some major players that haven't been drawn yet.
You've got Maximum Security, a pace presence as well, along with Vacoma. If you're one of those pace presence horses, you want to be drawn on the outside. You don't want to be too far out, but you want to have those other speed types on the inside of you so you can kind of make your own race.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want to be able to make your own trip. But like you said, anything can happen out of the gate. Even talked about the turn with War of Will. Yes, he has speed, but if he doesn't break well, you can get caught behind that rail there, and then you're shuffled all the way back to last.
Right, so that will be obviously imperative for him. Good gate break is imperative for all of these horses, and we have the first 10 drawn at this point. Still 10 more to go, including the 3 Baffords. Let's send it back to the post position draw.
Welcome back, everyone, to Churchill Downs on this Tuesday morning as we draw the 145th Kentucky Derby. 10 post positions down, 10 to go. quick note on Bodie Express, who drew into the also eligible list. Ben just let me know that at last moment there was a change there. Chris Landeros is listed as the rider for Bodie Express, the first also eligible for Saturday's Derby. And once again, the scratch time for that is Friday at 9 a.m. So we've drawn 10 more to go. A few post positions that might make one sweat a little bit. And gentlemen, let's finish them off.
Number 7.
7, Maximum Security, Louis Saez.
Number 7 is the Florida Derby winner, Maximum Security, a horse you could have bought at one point for just $16,000. He's done nothing but win races. Figures to be forwardly placed in Saturday's Kentucky Derby after going wire to wire in the Florida Derby. That is Maximum Security, number 7.
$17.
17, Roadster, Florent Giroux.
Number 17 is Roadster, one of many Bob Baffert horses in this year's Kentucky Derby. Curiously, everybody is worried about the one post, but 17 is 0 for 40 in the Kentucky Derby. Florent Giroux and Roadster will try to buck that trend on Saturday. Good.
Number 18.
18 is Long Range Toddy, John Court.
Number 18, Long Range Toddy with jockey John Court. John Court is a veteran race rider, knows Churchill Downs very well. And Long Range Toddy's trainer, Steve Asmussen, also does pretty well at Churchill Downs over the years. Long Range Toddy post 18 for Saturday's Derby.
Number 9.
9, Pluquet Parfait, Ricardo Santana Jr.
Number 9, Pluska Parfait is a bit of a world traveler. Has gone around the world to get to the Kentucky Derby this year for local trainer Brendan Walsh. Brendan Walsh making his first Kentucky Derby. Pluska Parfait, number 9, with Ricardo Santana Jr.
Number 16.
16, Game Winner, Joel Rosario.
Number 16 is game winner. Don't worry, Bob. That post is 4 for 47. So there's some winners coming out of there. Game winner. One, of course, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, right here at Churchill Downs. Winless in both starts this year. Ran very well in both of those, however. That's game winner, number 16.
Number 5.
5, Improbable, Irad Ortiz Jr.
Number 5 is Improbable for Rad Ortiz Jr. On many shortlists throughout the entire winter leading into this year's Kentucky Derby. He has not won his last 2 starts, but he was right there in both of those and right there with 2 horses that figure to take some action in Saturday's Kentucky Derby. That's number 5, Improbable, with Rad Ortiz Jr.
Number 6.
6, Vacoma, Javier Castellano.
Number 6, Vacoma, with Javier Castellano, of course, trained by Louisvillian George Weaver. Was a resounding winner of the Bluegrass earlier this month over at Keeneland. Vacoma has some tactical speed. We'll see how forwardly placed he is in Saturday's Derby. That's Vacoma, number 6.
Number 4.
4, Gray Magician, Drayden Van Dyke.
Number 4 is Gray Magician with jockey Drayden Van Dyke. Gray Magician breaking from post position number 4. Was second last out in the UAE Derby to fellow rival Pluska Parfait. Gray Magician breaking from post position number 4 with Drayden Van Dyke.
Number 12.
12, Omaha Beach, Mike Smith.
Number 12, Omaha Beach, projects to be one of the shorter prices in Saturday's Kentucky Derby, has Hall of Fame credentials, including a resounding win in the Arkansas Derby last time out, has done absolutely nothing wrong, has progressed with each and every start, projects to be one of the shorter priced horses. That's Omaha Beach, number 12. We should have one more to go.
Number 3.
3, By My Standards, Gabriel Saez.
By my standards, breaking from post position number 3 with Gabriel Saez. If there was a buzz horse this week at Churchill Downs, it would be him. A lot of chatter of how well By My Standards has been training for trainer Brett Calhoun. That's number 3, By My Standards. And with that, we've drawn all 20 post positions for this year's Kentucky Derby. We'll take another brief break. We'll come back with the TwinSpires.com morning line odds and Mike Battaglia to deliver those. We'll be back in just a moment.
Well, thanks, Travis. And of the horses that are expected to show speed, Omaha Beach drew outside of all of them, post position number 12, at least on paper, based on what we've seen in past performances and races. Omaha Beach, very well drawn.
Yeah, pretty much right in the middle of the field, Joe. Mike's going to have plenty of options in there, what I like to call the options trip. If no one wants to go early, he'll take control. But if you see a mad dash, he'll sit back.
You look at Improbable, post 5, Maximum Security, post 7, Vacoma, post 6, War of Will, post 1, and maybe Cutting Humor, post 10. Again, all drawn inside of Omaha Beach as far as the horses that have shown some natural early speed in those races. You get a horse like Spinoff. We talked about that one earlier. Post 19 has a little pressing speed. And then you've got Game Winner and Roadster, 16 and 17, kind of stalking type horses. They can make their own trip in and out of that first turn if they don't get hung too wide. I don't think those post positions are all that bad for them.
No, I actually like the post position for Game Winner. He showed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile here that he could actually sit back a little further. He's been pretty close to the pace in his last two. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they come back a little further. Joel, a strong finisher, maybe the strongest finisher in the game. Game Winner on the outside there, I think it's a great post.
What do you think of post 3 for By My Standards? He has a similar style. He wants to stalk the early proceedings. There's a lot of those kind of horses in this race that kind of want to sit mid-pack, and it makes it even that much more fascinating. A little bit of a tough draw for By My Standards.
Yeah, we saw the Louisiana Derby where he was able to take dirt and sit behind horses, so for me, Joe, it's not that big of a worry.
Let's send it over to Ed DeRosa quickly for his thoughts. Ed?
Yeah, part of the fun for me, Joe, is actually watching trainer and horseman reaction to the posts. Probable definitely got very positive vibes from his connections, not so much expectedly from War of Will as Mark Cassidy buried his head in his hands, and then he just laughed it off, and that's all you can do. It's the luck of the draw. Now they'll have to get a lucky trip from post 1.
On the Kentucky Derby workout show, Ed was talking about trainer body language. We like to talk about horse body language as a good example. Thanks for that assessment, Ed. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, especially if you've been through this process so many times, Brandon. You just got to take what you get and hope for the best.
Yeah, you just got to show up and hopefully your horse runs their race. I mean, like I said, he's got plenty of tactical speed. He's been on the bit, kind of pulling in the morning. So really for the post, I mean, I think they have no choice but to go ahead and go on with it.
We've got the post positions. Who's going to be the morning line favorite? We're going to find out momentarily as Mike Battaglia. He's been doing this a long time. He's going to give us those odds.
And welcome back as we continue to roll along here with the 145th Kentucky Derby draw, joined on the stage by Mike Battaglia, the Churchill Downs morning line odds maker since 1975. This would make Derby number 45 for him. Barb Borden was joking ahead of time, said that you've seen them all, but that's not quite true. 45th year for the TwinSpires.com morning line odds. Here's Mike Battaglia.
All right, one quick fact about John Asher that not many people know. The man could tie a tie faster than anybody I've ever seen. We used to do a show on Sunday morning. He'd be sitting there all of a sudden. He'd take that thing, flip it around, boom, over and out on air. He was just like that. Quick tire, John Asher. All right, let's go. Let's take a look at the odds here. By my standards, Gabriel Saez aboard at 20 to 1. I know he's been training well. Code of Honor with Johnny V, 15 to 1. Country House, Flavian Pratt, 30 to 1. Corey Landry on Cutting Humor, that horse is also 30 to 1. Game Winner with Joel Rosario, 1 of 3 for Bob Baffert, the second choice at 5 to 1. Gray Magician at 50 to 1. High Cowl, Mirage aboard, 30 to 1. Improbable, second for Baffert, Irad Ortiz, third choice at 6 to 1. Long Range Toddy and John Court, 30 to 1. Master Fencer with Leparoux at 50 to 1. Maximum Security, Luis Saez, the big question mark to me in here, 10 to 1. Omaha Beach, Mike Smith, morning line favorite, 4 to 1. Pluquet Parfait, Santana at 30 to 1. Roadster with Florent Giroux, the other Baffert, and the other third third choice at 6 to 1. Spinoff with Manny Franco at 30. Tacitus, Jose Ortiz at 10. Tax with Junior Alvarado at 20. Vacoma, Javier Castellano, 20. War of Will, I had knocked that horse down after that big work, but with the one hole, I put him back up to 20 to 1. And win, Julian Pimentel at 15 to 1. Bodie Express on the also eligibles at 30 to 1. Best of luck to all contenders.
Just, Mike, I'll ask a couple of quick questions about this morning line, and you already mentioned the post draw for War of Will, maybe change things up a little bit. But let's first talk about favoritism. Did you have to really go back and forth? Because a lot of chatter about who might be favored in this year's Derby.
Oh, sure. When Bob's got 3 horses in here, and Mike Smith, of course, he goes and takes Omaha Beach. I think that was a big factor. But it's also the fact that Bob's got 3 horses. And a lot of people, and they look a lot similar in odds, they're going to have trouble picking one out over the other. So I think Bob having 3 in there, I think that'll hurt his chances of being favored, because all the Bob Baffert money is going to go on 3 different horses instead of 1. So that was a big part of it.
Interesting insight into Saturday's 145th Derby. 1975, morning line odds maker. Good for you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mike. A couple of quick housekeeping notes, then we'll send you on your way as Derby week continues to roll on. Of course, the Derby is on Saturday. Post time's approximately 6:46. You can watch all the racing on NBC this weekend. $3 million, $1.8 million, more than that for first place finish in the Derby. There's a lot of hardware up here, but none more valuable than the Kentucky Derby trophy. If the connections could stick around, if you could, to speak with the media here at the post position draw, we'd appreciate that. Otherwise, everybody, good luck this weekend. Enjoy Kentucky Derby week, and we'll see you Saturday. Thank you much.
No real surprises in the morning line odds. No real surprises. The favorite, Omaha Beach, lukewarm 4 to 1. A lot of horses in that 6, 8, 10 to 1 range, battling for second favoritism. No real surprises to me.
No, not at all. I mean, I think that, horses that won their preps, but how strong were the preps, that went into consideration there. If you finished second in a good prep, then you probably were posted a little higher.
As you can see, Omaha Beach lukewarm at 4 to 1. The Baffert trained game winner, Baffert trained Roadster, 5 to 1, 6 to 1 respectively, along with the Baffert trained Improbable at 6 to 1. Interesting what Mike said about that money being spread around for Baffert's horses. A lot of people, after you win 5 derbies, are just going to bet you, and that money will be spread around a little bit. All 3 of those horses are pretty equal, at least based on past performances coming into the race.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that early wagering on Friday. You've got the inside runners, by my standards, 20 to 1, War of Will, 20 to 1. Are they going to get bet now with those posts? By my standards, maybe not so much worried about the posts, but with that good work, War of Will, is he going to get bet off of that?
A couple of years ago, Kieran McLaughlin had a grade 1 sprinter by the name of Tackaful. This year he's got High Call for the Derby, who's a half-brother, but he's an off-pace closer in 2-turn races. Curious what Kieran has to say, the man with the answers, Ed DeRosa. Ed?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, Kieran, he'll have the answers. I have the question for you. They said you'll be way, way back. Was that an accurate plan?
Yeah, pretty much we'll be back, way, way back.
Post 11 means he's one of the first to load. They double load. Any issues with his demeanor standing in there for so long?
No, that's the only negative. It's great post in the middle of the field, but he does load first, but he's good in the gate.
Now, you've been through this before in 05. I know you've said before you thought you were going to win the Kentucky Derby with closing argument, but we know deep closers do need to get into the race. When do you hope to see this horse making his move?
Probably by the half-mile pole. He's got to be moving toward the leaders, but he does come late, and we'll just hope for the best. The post 11 was in Vasor winning the Breeders' Cup Classic here, so we got to look at the positives and winning colors one out of the 11 in the Derby.
And speaking of winning colors, your old boss, Coach Wayne Lucas, always said he knew he had a chance at the kitchen. So the half-mile pole, you're in accordance with him.
Yes, we need to be moving forward by then.
All right, very good. Well, appreciate the time, Karen. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Joe?
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Kieran. And the Kentucky Derby has been won by forwardly placed horses, and it doesn't look like, and we always have surprises, but there is no promises fulfilled in this race. Promises fulfilled last year wound up being one of the top sprinters in the country. He set the pace in the Derby. It was a wicked fast pace up front. Not sure we're going to see that this year.
Yeah, I don't know, Joe. It's going to be interesting because, like I said, War of Will with the rail, I just feel like they have no choice but to go. The way the energy he's been showing in the mornings, they've been putting a ton of speed into him. He's naturally fast anyways in here. Maybe he heats up this pace even more with that draw.
Yeah, the most anticipated moment of all of this and you and I own some horses. Anybody that's a horse owner is the entering the starting gate and the leaving the starting gate and seeing what your horse is going to do when they leave the gate. Your horse could break perfectly. That doesn't mean the horses around you are going to. Who's going to be fractious? It's a long process with 20 horses entering the gate. It takes a while to do that.
It does, and you also have to deal with the paddock, the walkover. I mean, the horses mentally have to be able to control their emotions, get on track, relax, and then also perform it in the race as well.
Ed DeRosa standing by with another guest. Ed?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, alongside Shug McGahee, winner of the 2013 Derby with Orb. And Shug, we've talked a lot about the pace this year. The two guys we've had up here train closers. Where do you hope Code of Honor is throughout the race?
Well, I think if we get away good, we'll probably be with that post mid-pack. That's where I'd want him. He's sort of a mid-pack, one-run type of a horse. And, you know, I was hoping to draw towards the outside, which we did. And so I think that, you know, hopefully the speed will go and we'll be able to get a position and hold it for as long as we can, then go from there.
You think further back than Orb was in his win, or a little more forwardly placed?
Might be a little bit more forwardly placed than Orb was, but I remember going down the backside, I was a little bit worried that Orb was back too far, but so I think that probably Johnny will have him a little bit closer to where he wants to be, but like I say, I don't want him up contesting anything.
A lot of discussion about jockeys making choices, and Johnny V decided to stick with you. Does that add to your confidence?
Well, sure it does. You know, to be able in a race like this to have a top rider like him that's been there before, that something goes wrong during the race, he ain't gonna hit the panic button, and you don't know what to do to hopefully get us out of it. But hopefully we won't have it. And you know, he'll be excited but not nervous.
Very good. Well, we'll hope for that as well. Safe trip. Wish you the best of luck, Shug.
Thank you very much.
Joe?
Well, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Shug. And Shug McGahee was always one of John Asher's favorites. John making his presence felt here, all thinking about him. It's not the same without him. But I had lunch with with Dee Asher yesterday, and Dee told me that she knew who John Asher's pick for this year's Derby was going to be. She said it was going to be Tacitus. John loved Bill Mott. He loved Shug McGahee. He loved all the trainers, but those were two of his favorites. And he just would probably love the way this horse is training. So I wanted to let everybody out there know who John Asher's pick was. Tacitus would be his pick according to Dee.
Yeah, and he's looked great here, Joe. Big horse, light on his feet. We like the way that Mott handles his runners. He brings them up to the races the right way, and I would love to see Bill Mott win this.
We've said that Bob Baffert has danced this dance many times. So has Elliott Walden, just in a different role. We're going to send it over to Ed DeRosa with some thoughts from Elliott. Ed?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, alongside Elliott Walden, who was here last year with very similar connections, just missing the rider. But Elliott, you broke the Apollo curse, but Improbable turned some heads as a 2-year-old.
Yes, he did, and he won here. And I know, you know, it looks like maybe rain again. We've been pretty lucky in the rain, but it wasn't the same track he ran on last fall, but he sure seems to like this racetrack.
And City Zip, pretty good sire in the rain, and saw a good runner-up finish. Has Bob told you he's moving forward off that Arkansas Derby?
Yeah, you know, we gave him some time off after he won the race at Los Al to get him ready for these kind of races, and the third in the cycles, the one that Bob really wanted, and so obviously we were trying to win the other two, but he couldn't be doing any better the way he looks here.
Yeah, we know from Bob winning 5, he always says it never gets old. You were just here last year, but I'm sure adding another to the trophy case is the goal.
Yeah, and you know, we were pleased with the 5-hole. We won with Super Saver out of the 4, and Justify was the 7, so we stayed in the same ballpark.
And you and the team at WinStar, you mentioned Super Saver, Justify, of course, last year. That's 2 winners in 8 years. And the operation gives a lot back with the WinStar fan program and things like that. What's it like to get a win like this part of the industry?
Oh, it's just great. I mean, it's just fun to be here. And you know, it's like when you're thinking about the post positions, you just got to remind yourself you're one of 20 and you've got a chance. And you know, I can't even imagine winning 2 years in a row. I don't even allow myself to think about it because it would almost seem greedy. So you know, we're just grateful to be here, but we do feel like we got a good chance.
We've got the Triple Crown win with Bob last year, and I always like to remind myself when I talk to you, you spoiled my favorite horse's bid with Victory Gallop and Real Quiet, but it's part of the game, right?
It is, and it was fun. It's always fun to be a part of the whole thing, whether you're on the winning side or losing. Just to be here is something that, makes horse racing. And you see owners, you see trainers like George Weaver come here for the first time. Richard Mandela hadn't been in here in a while, and he's got Omaha Beach. You see the spark in people's eyes. Owners like Chester that owns Be My Standards. He's just excited to be here. It's fun. It's what it's all about.
Derby is good for the soul for sure, and we wish you a lot of luck, Elliot.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Elliot. Another look at the 20 horses who are in the body of the field for the 145th running of the Kentucky Derby, presented by Woodford Reserve. Purse $3 million this year. The purse has been raised and probable. Elliot Walden talking about him, Brandon, 6-1 in the morning line. He looks a lot like Justify. He's got that chestnut coloring and that big white blade.
Yeah, he does. He's got that big stride too. And with the blinkers coming off, Joe, you might think this one's going to be a little further back than he was in the Arkansas Derby. So, I think Omaha Beach too, Joe. When you're speed but you can rate, you always love to be drawn outside of the other speeds. You've got Vacoma on the inside, you've got War Will, you've got Tax, and you've got some horses on the inside, Maximum Security, that like to be forwardly placed. So, you couldn't draw it up any better for Omaha Beach.
One of the coolest things leading into this Kentucky Derby is the connection that trainer Dick Mandela has with his horse, Omaha Beach. We're going to find out more about that and what he thinks about his post as we send it back to Ed.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, alongside Hall of Famer Richard Mandela with Omaha Beach. And Richard, no one gets to pick their post, but you were in a position where only 2 were left. Is 12 the one you wanted?
Yeah, it was. But none of the posts were bad. You're just lucky to be here for the Derby.
A lot of talk about the pace in this race. We've seen Omaha Beach when forwardly placed. Where are you hoping to be heading into that first turn?
Mike will probably let him run out of there, and then having the 12 post, he'll have the option of being able to size up how fast they're going, and he'll use his best judgment.
Last year we had John Sadler break his streak of shipping east and getting the big win in the Breeders' Cup Classic. You hoping to follow in his footsteps here with the Derby win?
If I can, we'll be trying.
Yeah, this horse debuted on turf, took a while to break his maiden. Did the light bulb go off? Did he need to grow? What do you attribute to this winning streak now?
He just matured mentally each race. He was just a very kind, easy horse to be around. And I think it took a race or two to really put the fight in him. And I think we've got that now.
I'm asked a lot what the best stories are this Derby. Obviously, you're a big part of it with this horse, but the owner, Fox Hill Farms, what would it be like to get the trophy for them?
Great deal. He had a tough go a couple years ago. Yeah. And he's overcome it. He's a warrior, just like this horse.
Does he ever bring up a Holder and Songbird?
Oh, every week, yeah.
Well, I'm sure no hard feelings if you got this one for him.
No.
Exactly. All right, well, I really appreciate the time, Richard. Best of luck.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Ed. Trainer Dick Mandela. And again, Brandon, he talks about the fight in Omaha Beach. That's a big thing. There's a lot to making a good racehorse. It's natural talent. It's the ability to overcome adversity, and it's the fight. And Omaha Beach has all 3 of those qualities.
Yeah, and the ability to relax. He talked about the mind, the fight as well, which you just mentioned in the Arkansas Derby. You could tell he could feel improbable coming, but he wasn't going to get by him. You just love to see that. You love to see a guy like Richard Mandela say he's a warrior. To be able to call a horse a warrior with a guy that's had so many horses, he likes his horse, he likes his chances, but he's staying very calm and cool about it. He's a guy that won 4 Breeders' Cup races in one day.
Right.
But this would mean a lot, and I'm excited for him. He might be my top pick after this draw.
Quiet confidence from Dick Mandela. And again, we talk about horses on paper, horses running in races, betting on those races, but there's a certain connection that man has with animal, and Dick Mandela loves his horses. He's got a special connection with Omaha Beach. You see it when he saddles the horse in the paddock before all of these big races, and he talks about it, Brandon, how kind of a horse Omaha Beach is, and it reminds me of American Pharoah, when he won the Triple Crown a few years ago, and there was the petting zoo afterwards, and people were going back to see him, and he was on Good Morning America, America. He had a great mind, but he was also very kind, and that's special.
Yeah, when you can turn that switch on and off, which he's going to need to do that in the race. He's going to need to be able to relax a little bit, and he's also going to be able to show a little speed. He talked about exactly what we were just talking about, Richard Mandela did, the fact that he's going to have the option out of the gate. If they're going slow, War of Will doesn't break, Vekoma doesn't break, Maximum Security doesn't break, Mike will go on with it, and this horse, if he gets the lead by himself, very, very dangerous, but he's got the mind to be able to show speed and then settle. Loved the workout that I saw here. On the workouts, videos and in person, his workout was the best that I've seen.
I feel like we're at a golf press conference and Tiger Woods is here. Bob Baffert being treated kind of the same way, the media mobbing Bob. Bob is so good-natured about it. I mean, he's been through this so many times. You know, people forget, Brandon, that he had that dry spell in the Kentucky Derby from 2002 to 2015. You know, he's won 5 of them, but he did have that long dry spell in between.
Yeah, he did, and we always talk about experience in this and how big experience is, not only from the training side, but also handling the media, having him at the barn every morning. You have to keep your cool because horses can kind of sense that. You know, if the trainer's stressing out, the barn work is stressing out, you want to keep everybody calm and cool. We talk about the mind so much, but the mind is such a big deal in a big race like this.
Yeah, and you can't just put too much pressure on yourself or on anybody around you. It's nice to have that calm, cool, relaxed attitude. I think it's infectious, it's contagious. Like we said, Bob has been through this so many times with every possible result. So he just knows at this point, let the gates open. Jill Bodie, the family, just cheer for the result for all 3 of his and hope to get safe trips, most importantly.
Yeah, and it's easy for us to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, kind of like we are up here, just kind of talking horses back and forth. But for them, it's a little more stressful, but for them, they just have to sit back and relax, enjoy it, and Bob obviously can do that.
We said that the first Derby points race was in September. It's right here at Churchill Downs. Months of scouting, months of watching races, months of watching horses train, and everything else in between. And the draw day is finally here. We've got the 20 post positions. We're going to send it over to Ed DeRosa for a final thought. Ed?
Yeah, and don't forget about months of top 10 lists either, Joe. Part of the fun for me, but now we're down to basically who we're actually going to bet in this race. Post positions, the final piece in Omaha Beach has to be thrilled. His connection with post 12, as you noted, all the speed to his inside, and Big Money Mike on the outside of them, surveying the landscape. I really wanted to go against the favorite this year, and I'm not going to be picking Omaha Beach on top, but he's impossible not to upgrade with that post position. So connections have every reason to be happy. Of course, War of Will not so much, but I expect a really fairly run race. There's no blazing pace. I think we're going to get an honest pace. Everyone should get a chance to come at the run without trouble. So really looking forward to it. 4 days away. I can't wait.
Yeah, 4 days away. It's hard to believe. Ed, great job as always. We got Ed DeRosa's final thought. Brandon, the post positions have been drawn. Now we can kind of try to visualize what we think the pace is going to be, who the best horses are in the race. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, the 2 horses that stole the workout show the other day, those are my 2 final thoughts in here. Omaha Beach drew perfectly. Couldn't be happier with that post. War of Will, in my opinion, the way he's been training, the post, they don't want to get stuck behind horses going to that first turn, Joe. War of Will is going to the front.
Yeah, he has to. I mean, he really has no other choice. A big, long striding horse who does not want to get caught in traffic, even more so than a lot of these others. My final thought is Omaha Beach just drawing perfectly. It seems to be the common thought here, but you've got all the other speed horses drawn inside of him. Improbable, Maximum Security, Vekoma, War of Will, maybe even Cutting Humor, showing some early speed as well. You never know what's going to happen coming out of the starting gate, but based on the post position, Dick Mandela and his camp, Mike Smith, they could not have asked for any better. That's going to wrap it up for the Kentucky Derby workout show. We do race live today at Churchill Downs. It is Champions Day. First post will be at 12:45. Kentucky Derby morning work show tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And as we leave, our thoughts are with John Asher and his family. We miss you, buddy. I wish you could be here for the draw, but you are always in our hearts here at Churchill Downs. Derby morning work show again, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Looking forward to that as we get closer to Friday and Saturday.
Post position